Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Firstly, a very warm welcome indeed to fellows, members and guests from around the world for this presentation by Chris King. Particularly I'd like to welcome our guests from Denmark, members of the Copenhagen Philatelic Club. We hope that you enjoy this afternoon's presentation and all the conviviality that goes with it. You'll be pleased to know I've no announcements to make at this point in time. Just to remind you that the display will be recorded, and if you wish to ask questions, please do use the chat facility which is indicated at the foot of your screen. It's now my great pleasure to introduce to you someone who probably really needs no introduction at all, Chris King. He is a past president of the Society, an honorary fellow, and a person who has signed the role of Distinguished Philatelists. He also now chairs our Philatelic Committee, which now encompasses the activities of the library, the philatelic collections, the museum, and the archives. And that was a new committee structure that was introduced some 14 or 15 months ago. I don't think I need to add anything further, and I now have great pleasure in handing over to Chris for his presentation. Thank you very much indeed, Chris.
Thank you very much indeed, Richard. That's very kind. And I will get this thing working in a moment. There we go. So thanks very much to everybody for turning up. That's really very, very good of you, particularly since this is, to say the least, an ephemeral subject. But nonetheless, it's interesting. I'd better start with a confession. I don't think I've got much after about 1960. And I don't think the kiosk system was involved in postal services after about then. Whatever we collect, our material is there for a reason, and it's usually social or economic or political reasons. And the same that's true also of these kiosk stamps and everything that went with them. And our material also exists in a historical context. And in this presentation, I hope to show you the Copenhagen Telephone Kiosk postal services and other services in their time and in their context. I think that the local postal services in Denmark existed partly because of the failure of the Danish post office. But the kiosks in Copenhagen were set up largely because of the commercial practices of the Bell Telephone Company, and up to 20 years after the first local post offices started. The background to these local services is the Copenhagen Footpost, which existed for a very long time, largely farmed out to others to organize. But in May 1849, the post office took over the Copenhagen Footpost, which was a local postal service within the ramparts of Copenhagen, from a family which had been running it for 3 generations. In 1851, the post office issued their own 2 Rigsbank skilling stamp to pay for local delivery in Copenhagen, and other towns followed, mainly from the 1st of January 1861, where towns with more than 6,000 inhabitants were allowed to set up a local 2 skilling post. In 1871, there was a law on the postal service, and I think from trying to read it that it dropped the monopoly of postal services from the state. And it wasn't long afterwards that the local post offices started. The other thing that happened on the 1st of January 1875 was currency reform in Denmark, and the 2 skilling local rate became 4 øre, which was quite a steep price rise. In 1875, Denmark joined the General Postal Union, and in 1876, the Footpost closed and was integrated into the General Post Office. And through the 1870s, there had been complaints about the quality of the postal services in the country. So on the 19th of July 1879, private posts were legalized in Denmark by a royal decree, and almost, well, within half a year, Kjøbenhavns Telegraph was established. That was a local postal service in Denmark, and others followed. And these are the Bopost stamps from Copenhagen, and very attractive they are, but actually they're nothing more to do with this talk. In 1888, a new postal law was introduced for forbidding the establishment of new local posts or the expansion of existing ones. The Danish postal service had taken quite a financial hit by the introduction of these local postal services. And by 1892, of the 17 local posts that were in business in the 1880s, only one remained. And this didn't really affect the independent parcel delivery services, which are another story, and they can be told on another occasion. The telephone was set up in 1879 by Kjøbenhavns Telegraph. So they set up public telephone stations and began to offer installation of telephone lines to private companies. But in 1881, the American Bell International Telephone Company established a telephone service in Copenhagen, supported by Carl Frederick Tietgen, who was a financier, a very successful financier. And they had the monopoly by 1882 of the postal service under a new company called the Kjøbenhavns Aktieselskab, which was founded by Tietgen. So you can see Tietgen was quite a smart operator. He managed to push Bell out of the business and to take over himself. But their target was the Copenhagen upper classes, the financial and the business sectors, the stock market. And with no competition, the company could fix subscriptions at a very high level. And the Copenhagen telephone service, which took over, only had 1,487 subscribers out of a population in Copenhagen of more than 250,000. And something needed to be done. A lot of these companies in Copenhagen, or several of these companies in Copenhagen, call themselves Telegraph. The telegraph service is also another story. The line from Helsingør to Hamburg was set up after 1852 and finished in 1854. And the telegraph service was open to the public in 1861. But despite the name, the Copenhagen kiosks telegraph was a different sort of service, which I'll explain later. Here's one of their the Kjøbenhavn Post telegrams, a good wishes telegram, Lykønsknings telegram, and this is from 1890. This is the first greetings telegram I have, and I'd love to see if there are any earlier. So we come on to the telephone kiosks company, Kjøbenhavns Telefonkiosker Aktieselskab. In 1895, the company got a concession from the city authorities for the operation and installation of 15 telephone kiosks for 15 years. And this drawing here was done by the city architect, Frits Koch, who created these new designs. These things were 9 meters tall, hexagonal, 9 square meters, and installed on a granite plinth. And as you can see from the diagram here below, there was space for 2 telephones and another space for selling newspapers. And here's Frits Koch's signature on the drawing from 1895. He died in 1905, and another architect, also from the city council, called Martin Nielsen, created a design for new and larger telephone kiosks from 1913. And here you can see one, and you can still see both of these today in Copenhagen, both of these designs. The new design wasn't popular. In 1929, the company wanted to build some more telephone kiosks, and the city insisted that they should be built in Coke's old design. But these Nielsen boxes were actually bigger, and they were in many ways better organized. There were 2 sales points, one here, one here. There's 2 telephone points and separate access from here. So access in-gang from one side, expedition, that's service, from 2 other points. Here's a magazine called Puck. This is from 24th of April 1898. It was contemporary with Punch in Great Britain and Puck in the United States. And you can see here the interior of one of the telephone boxes with the advertisements displayed in the windows here in reverse, and the telephone operator, Telefondamen, sitting there in the window. So this is the front page illustration. And the text on the left-hand side says, "Hello, is that the exchange? Could you please ask kiosk 6 if she would like to have lunch with kiosk 9? And then the 2 kiosks can be seen walking together in a bubble on the left. So they made an impact almost immediately on the social life and just the daily goings on in Copenhagen, and became an institution. This is a map of the city of Copenhagen, and you can see the harbour, Christianshavn, and here's the lakes, which form the northern barrier, really the northern boundary of the old city. And here are the telephone kiosks at one point. I'm showing 23 kiosks here. There were more at different times. They were open from 7 in the morning till 11 at night, 10 o'clock in the winter, and they had a 24-hour service from 4 boxes eventually. And each kiosk, as you've seen, contains 2 telephones. There are some really beautiful cards. This is from Kongens Nytorv, the King's New Square, and you can see a boy on a bicycle with a uniform, jacket and hat, and you can see the advertisements in the window, and it says "Greetings from Copenhagen." These kiosks sold newspapers and magazines. They sold stamps, theatre and concert tickets, which were quite a big business. They sold insurance policies, box numbers, a post-restant system. They sold advertising space, from small ads to posters. It was possible to ring the telephone kiosk to leave a message, which would then be sent to the recipient by the bicycle messenger, as you've seen. And they acted as agents for newspaper advertising and as an address for responses to small ads in city newspapers. And from the beginning, telegrams could be sent, very attractive, and with special occasion designs, and we'll come on to those later. And also later, parcels which had missed the post office opening hours or closing hours could be left for forwarding for the night or morning trains, and they also allowed you to book taxis. So here we can see another cycle messenger, same uniform, and he's carrying a telegram, and on the telegram you can see the design of the kiosk, and here the seal, also with the design of a kiosk. They use these kiosks, the image of the kiosk, unmercifully as a wonderful piece of marketing. And this card is showing the Aktieselskab Kjøbenhavns Telefonkiosker and Kjøbenhavns Aktieselskab. So I think there was a lot of cooperation between these 2 companies operating at the same time. Here's the telephone boy again, and he's picking up, I think, a message from the kiosk, and he'll go off and deliver it. And the price for this was €20 or express €35. I don't know what the difference between €20 or €35 was in service, but this one is also on Kongens Nytorv, the King's New Square. Here's an envelope from a telegram. It's important that excuse me, it's important that the telegram idea is understood. You would ring the telephone kiosk and you would dictate your telegram, which would be written out in the kiosk and then sent to the recipient using the boy on the bicycle. It was not a telegram service per se, it was a telephone service which resulted in a telegram in terms of the speed of delivery. So this is F14, and here's the forwarding number 269. And here's another, also with this ubiquitous design. This is T14 and forwarding number 3441. And here is one of these good wishes telegrams with a Copenhagen, one of Coke's designs here, and then founded in the year 1896, Kjøbenhavns Telefonkiosker. And this is dated, I think it's the 11th of November, 1898. There's a big problem in looking in the catalogues and the literature, because there isn't much in the way of catalogues or literature. The Stiggy Ringström's book on the Danish local posts, but all we really know is that they began in 1896. We don't know who designed them, we don't know who printed them, and we really are not very sure on the date on which they were available. My guess is they were issued from the beginning in 1896. With this 5 euro, a 10, 25. And through the course of their usage, they changed. Design, they were overprinted. I'm missing 2 here. So if anybody's got a couple of these, I'd be very grateful. And you can see the design changed from a ray device around the telephone kiosk to a horizontal engraving across the kiosk. And you can see the kiosk has no light in the window here, and in this one there's a reflection. But again, the design of the kiosk is central to creating the brand, which lasted for such a long time. You can see the same thing in the telegram sealing labels. These are all pre-World War I. The center one you've seen already, the left-hand one and the right-hand one were used on different occasions. I don't know whether there was a difference in the color for the service, but they were used to seal the telegram, folded telegrams. Later in the 1920s, a different design, again with the design of Coke's telephone kiosk central to it, and these were used both as stamps and as sealing labels. Here's a later design still, probably after 1935, and again, this is the Copenhagen city arms with the wavy lines that you find on Copenhagen porcelain as part of the design, and these 2 came with overprints. This is taken from a telephone book from 1937, and you can see here that the kiosks are numbered. So number 1 is Kongens Nytorv, number 2 is Groningen or Gröningen, number 3 Nytorv, etc. And this is 1 through 22. And here in the small print, starting at 26, there's the kiosk boutique, the kiosk shops, 26, 27, 29, 30, and 31. And these numbers created the foundation for the postmarks. And here we have the postmarks from Kongens Nytorv number 1, Groningen number 2, and number 3 Gammeltorv, and so on. And you can see I've got here numbers 1 through 10. Again, the catalogues don't say what numbers there are, They don't say when the numbers were introduced. There is no information really whatsoever. There's an occasional article in one of the Danish journals, but very, very little more. So these circular marks lasted for quite a long time and contained these central numbers. They were also cancelled with pen, and there were head office postmarks as well. This is hovedkontor, the head office, the telephone number, and this one is in Studiestræde, number 30, Studiestræde 12, and this one is also Studiestræde, but there's also, it says, according to one list I have, a Kultur and Nørregade, and I have not seen those yet. And then we come to the covers, and covers really are very, very scarce. This one, 28th of January 1897, which is why I think that the stamps were available from 1896. You'll have noticed there's no date stamp, and I know the date of this one simply because of the contents which have survived. And we know this is an express letter because it says so here, and we know that it's number 8 Sultorv because it says so there. And this particular kiosk opened on the 1st of June 1896. This is Sultorv in 1909 with Koch's kiosk in the centre and a rather nice tram and the obligatory dog. And here we have another coloured image of Sultorv Silver Square, used at a date we don't know. It's an undivided back, so it's probably about 1905. Another cover here, Telefonkiosken, the telephone kiosk, Rådhusplassen, Town Hall, Town Hall Square, the Town Hall Place. And here's a picture of the kiosk, and you can see here Telefonkiosker number 4. This is, I think this must be sent express, although it doesn't say so, because of the price. It's 35 euro, which was on one of the listings I've seen the price of an express letter. But I've only seen 2 listings and 2 price lists, both in the same place. This one is number 3, Telefonkiosker number 3 in Gammeltorv. No date, and it's marked hermed in it packet, which with it's a parcel. It's herewith a parcel, and this is to Martin Grossel, a bookseller. And Martin Grossel was certainly in business when I was in Copenhagen looking at bookshops, and may still be, at least the name is still in business. And here's Gammeltorv. And this is showing the kiosk at Gammeltorv, captioned Kjøbenhavns Nygade. In fact, this is Gammeltorv and this is Nytorv. It's 2 squares facing each other in central Copenhagen. Here we have January 1915, and very helpfully, number 11. That's the highest number I've seen. Sent from Göteborg in Sweden to Miss Elsa Brunn, care of kiosk number 11 at Little Triangle, Copenhagen. It's a square on Østerbro, and 5 streets come together, and it's just been given the name the Triangle. So here we have Telefonkiosker number 11, Østerbro. So there are 11 so far. And here's the kiosk. I love these postcards. They're hand-coloured, and they really are evocative of the time. That's drawn in pen. This one is Telefonkiosker number 5 in Kultur. That's Coal Square. and it's got this, again, it's been sent from within Denmark. It's sent to the kiosk in Kultorv, and it's got a fee stamp on. And here is number 5 in Nure Boulevard, I think, Boulevard. And number 5 Kultorv. So you find the same number used for kiosks in different places. And again, this is the only one I know about, but there must be others. And my guess is that's a register number from the kiosk, and either it was delivered by bike or the recipient came to collect it, and I don't know which. My guess is, again, this 94, because you see it regularly on the items. This is being received or collected on the 9th of April. You can see it's sent from Copenhagen K, that's the centre of Copenhagen, on the 9th of April, and here is a handwritten 9th of April. And as I say, it's either arrival at the kiosk, which is probable, or it's a dispatch date. And here's the kiosk in Kultorv. Another one also coming from Middelfart, which is towards the western part of Denmark. And again, it's got this 20 euro stamp over the postmark, but it's addressed to kiosk number 2. I think it's right. And here, this is a post restant. And there must have been a post restant service. My guess is it's 20 euro. And this number 64 may be a box number, so that Miss, I can't read her name properly, but so that the recipient can collect it from the box. This is a rather nice stereo card from 1900 from Groningen. And you can really get the feel of the times from this. These cards, and especially stereo cards, even more than postcards, tell you how it was. This looks like a misty day in Copenhagen, and it's marked 1900 on the reverse, and it's by somebody called Peter Elfeldt. Peter Elfeldt made the first Danish short film, fictional, and he also made the first Danish advertising film. And you can see in gold letters on the brown background his details here, and his telephone number 425. This is an interesting card, and it isn't mine, so thank you to Henrik Moritzen, who some of you will know. And this has been handed in at the telephone kiosk in Gammeltorv, and it's been delivered probably by bike to the railway station in Copenhagen by messenger, and then it's gone, as I say, it's the railway post office, and it's Kjøbenhavns Philatelist, which is a railway postmark. So it's been paid to be taken quickly to this railway station. The railway station, it's called the night train to Jutland, and it's arrived in Tarm, which is it's gone right across Sjælland and right across Fyn and into Jutland, and arrived in Tarm between 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning, as we can see from here. And it was delivered. So it was a very quick way of getting an item of mail across the country. Here's another 1917 rather, a letter card sent within Copenhagen to the kiosken Dronning Louise's Bro, and it's been forwarded again or held at the kiosk with this 10 euro, different postmark, kiosk 9, and here it says actually betalt is paid, kiosk 9. And again, I don't know whether that was paid at the kiosk or what. Another one here from Germany, and it's gone to Fröken Miss Sander at the kiosk in Pornutor, the kiosk on New Square, and it's been signed by somebody called Carl. And again, it's received this telephone kiosk stamp at the point of delivery to the kiosk, I think, or dispatch from the kiosk. In this case, 25 euro. Something rather similar. Also to the kiosk on Nutor, also to the same Miss Zander, this time from Great Britain, and again with the same stamp there. And there's the 24/5. So May 22nd, 1928, 24/5. So it's arrived in Copenhagen 2 days later. And I think, as I say, this is the date of receipt by the kiosk. In the letter, this has contents too, so we know the date. And the writer says, I'll do it in English. In future, I will write only on the card the signature Jij, J-E-G, which means Jij elsker Greta. Jij elsker Greta. I love Greta. And it's just got a DS there. We don't know who it's a mystery. But again, a little later, this one's gone to Fruken Zander, again from the Palace Hotel in Brussels. A love letter addressed to the same Miss Zander, signed, in this case, Jelg, J-E-L-G, Jij elsker Greta. And it's addressed, my dear love, little Greta. So I think that these kiosks might have been a convenient point for, what shall we call them, illicit letters or assignations. Here's another. This is addressed to opera singer Karen Maria Nielsen at the kiosk. This is the kiosk on the corner of Oosterbrogade and Jagtvej. And again, it's posted on the 15th of February and it's arrived on the 16th of February. And again, with a different design stamp for either forwarding or collection. Karen Maria Nielsen was quite famous in her day. Another entire, in this particular case, undated, without contents, and that's not a date, quite obviously. It says Frederiksberg Frimærkeforening, the Frederiksberg Stamp Union. And we know it was founded on the 5th of March 1935. So again, there's no known record of these printing dates, numbers, designers. And we can see here, this is Eerbetaald Kiosk Tuve, kiosk number 20 in Rådhusplassen in Town Hall Square. Lars asked me a question the other day, and that's Lars Engelbrecht. He said, how did they pay for this if they were delivered or collected? And this is a bill for 1 krone and 29 euro. And you can see 1 krone, 29 euro. And it's for sending a telephone telegram from telephone number 9565. And the cashier is called to collect the money for the first time. And you can see over here, see, first time, and they crossed that one out. So obviously they anticipated having to go back for the money a second time. And they're saying they will either come back for the money, or in the meanwhile, you can pay at the office in Studiestrade 30, which is the address we saw earlier in the head office postmark. And this piece of mysterious numerology is the second Annensal, the second floor, Oegård, across the courtyard, 9-3. So anyway, she's going to come back, or he's going to come back and collect the money. And then lastly, we're going to look at some telegrams. I love these telegrams. I think these are some of the most attractive things you can find produced by these local postal services. This is sent internally, as they all are in Copenhagen, 20th of November 1898, which you can see here. That's an 11, not a 10. And it's sent to Sofiavej, number 15. And it's printed for Telefonkiosker by Wilhelm Subor's Efterfolio, which you can see down here. And we know who the lithographer is. And you can find him on Google or in the local Copenhagen guides from the contemporary period. And it's a very, very attractive piece. And there's a little more about the business continuing from 1893. So it was Frederick Solem who was responsible for the production of this particular telegram. And then we come to another one, also addressed to Sofiavej Fempton, Sofiavej number 15, and also with the same date. So also produced by the same company. And again, with the ubiquitous kiosk, which you can see again and again and again. And here, this one is 1899. Greetings, telephone telegram sent locally in Copenhagen. And really, there's absolutely no reference to printer or artist, as is often the case. And here's another, this time 1903, sent locally in Copenhagen. This one we know is designed by Christian Frederick Beck. And you can see here the logo and the sort of the winged telephone kiosk and Beck's name at the bottom. This was printed for both the Aktieselskab and the Telefonkiosker company, and I think there was quite a lot of cooperation and sharing going on. This is an attractive one with Rosenberg Palace, 1904. Greetings or best wishes telegram. Again with the kiosk. And this one with the cartouche, initials CFB. And I have to thank Mark Bailey for finding that one for me yesterday. And this is at the base of the pier under the third and fourth urns from the left. So there's a lot to pick out of these telegrams if you can find enough of them and look at them carefully enough. This is very attractive. This one's actually embossed. I find it very, very attractive. Again, the same design. This is Gefion's spring van in Copenhagen. It's a fountain, and Gefion was the goddess who ploughed one of the lakes in Sweden, Lake Vänern, and she used the soil from digging Lake Vänern to create the island of Sealand in Denmark. I think this is a pretty thing, and it's it's on very good paper. So this is 1909, and we know who printed it, Levison Jr. And there we know also, it flew across because it's a seagull, you know, but we know that this is Glud, W. Glud, who was responsible for the design. And he was a well-known artist at the time, and actually created the design for the charity stamp, the Christmas charity stamp in 1914. One more, 1st of March 1908, printed for the Kiosk Company by F. Crowell. Again, thank you, Mark. Fritz Crowell, which you can find at the lower right. And again, the telephone kiosk design. And then finally, this one is really quite late, 24th of July 1921. The Greetings telephone telegram sent locally in Copenhagen. This is a really quite interesting one. We can read it's printed for the Kjøbenhavns Telephone Kiosks. We know we can see under the right oak leaves there that it's been designed by L. Meyer, and it's got the printer here. And on the left here, it says that it's protected under a law of rights of authors and artists, which was passed by the Parliament on the 1st of April 1912. So you may be wondering what happened after 1960, or indeed after about 1935, and the answer is I don't really know, but I do know that the company existed until 1980, when it went out of business finally and was struck off the stock exchange. And I think therefore most of the time after the war, they were simply kiosks selling things out into the public rather than running a postal service. But we need to see more material to find out, as is so often the case. And here's one today. This is a picture taken fairly recently, and you can see this is one of Nielsen's kiosks. It's a little bigger, and it's utilized as a very comfortable cafe in one of those very many sunny days that they get in Copenhagen during June and July and August. So enjoy your coffee. And it would be a terrible mistake, I think, not to remind ourselves that these are a great Danish tradition, as is Lego. And here's a Lego telephone kiosk. I'm afraid you can't buy this as a kit, but it is a kiosk, and it's the end of my talk. And there we go, some little Lego people waving farewell and wearing Royal Philatelic Society London tops to their tracksuits. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sorry it's a bit brisk. There's a lot to take in there, but this presentation will be available for download both in PowerPoint format and in PDF format from the website. So please download it. If you can't get in for access, please email me and I'll send you a copy. So thank you very much indeed. There you go.
Thank you very much, Chris. Back to you, Richard. Richard, you need to unmute yourself.
Actually,
Yeah.
right, I am unmuted now.
Yes, you are.
Chris, thank you very much indeed for that excellent presentation. I think we have 12 questions there, but just a few words before we move on to taking the questions. But I would like to say that this was a very unusual subject. I think it's been a great education for everybody. It certainly has for me. The stamps, I've hardly ever seen anything like that. And as far as the telegrams are concerned, they're absolutely magnificent. I particularly like the Art Nouveau ones and the first two that you put up. That closing slide as well, nice to give the Royal a bit of publicity. One wonders whether we will see the Royal logo on Lego in future in the marketplace. I won't say any more because it will detract from the vote of thanks that will be presented by Lars after we have the questions. We do have a few questions there, and these will be collated by Mark. But once again, my deep gratitude to you for this wonderful presentation, and I will now hand over to Mark to manage the asking of questions. Mark, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Right. Okay, Chris. Yeah, there's been a number of questions. The first one of which came from Keith Brandon, who asked, did these kiosks exist in other Danish cities?
Yes, notably in Aarhus, there was a kiosk. There was another in Helsingør. There was another in Frederiksberg. Frederiksberg is actually, it's part of Copenhagen, but nonetheless, it was a separate company. I don't know of any others, but those are the ones I know about. There were other kiosk companies within Copenhagen. And some of those kiosk companies produced telephone telegrams as well. And there was an Aarhus telephone telegram company. And I have examples of some of these. So yes, they certainly existed in 4 places, 3 others in Copenhagen.
Thank you. I know that you showed us that receipt and you explained about payment, but Ray Harris just asks, when sent to a kiosk, would it be the recipient who paid the fee? So,
to which the answer has to be jolly tricky to get it off the chap in Berlin.
that'll be a yes then. Okay, yeah.
So I
Yes.
don't know for certain, but I would have thought that must be the case.
Yeah, makes sense. Gordon Hardy is particularly taken with the materials that the kiosks are made of, and he asks, Chris, what were they made of? They appear to be prefabricated cast iron and glass. Is that the case?
A lot of pine. A lot of pine, and the decorative panels in the arches, I think, must be made of some hardwood because they're all very finely carved. I could show you pictures of all of the possible designs if you wish, but you know, time's going by.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But they do show signs of the zodiac, and they show modern activities, so that you can find an aeroplane, you can find Viking ships, and these things are carved in the panels above, either 6 or 8 panels, and that must be in hardwood. At the top, they're made of copper. So it's a granite base, it's largely pine with some metal and glass. And then you've got copper, and then you've got these hardwood panels of design above.
Right, thank you. Frank Walton would like to know, do you exhibit this collection? And if you do, in which class?
Good question. There isn't enough of the quotes postal end quotes material to barely make a 1-frame exhibit. Why do you think I collect postcards and telegrams and receipts and so on? I mean, I haven't even found I haven't even got a single example of all of the stamps. So no, I don't exhibit it. If I have thought about putting together 3 frames, for example, for Notos, and just entering it in a sort of an open class, but it's not really open class because there isn't enough variety of material. So I think it's destined always to be a display for a club or a society, or for a fun day out, or for a nice glass of wine while I show you some of the stuff that I made earlier. And that has to be just about it. So I don't think it's an exhibiting subject.
Okay.
Just one other thing. I mean, I have looked at doing the Danish local posts as an 8-frame exhibit, but actually the covers are incredibly hard to find, and they are insanely expensive these days. I mean, I've had some of these for a bit, but I mean, you can look on the internet now and you can find prices for single stamps on cover of up to 1,500 quid.
Bloody hell.
So the other reason not to go, which is another very good reason not to go any further with it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think you kind of showed us this in the later part of your talk, but Kevin Newson asked the question partway through. He said, are the kiosks still existing in a preserved state, or is there one retained in a museum? Well, I think you've shown us a couple that are still in use.
There's one in the Museum Street near the National Museum, which is preserved. There's one, I think, in Aalborg, which is preserved. I think there's one in one of the Copenhagen parks. And I think there are 5 or 6 around the city streets of Copenhagen still. They have occasionally been moved. I mean, you know, Kongens Nytorv has been endlessly remodeled, and that kiosk has been moved. And these things sit on granite plinths, so it must be quite a task. So yeah, I think there are 8 or so still in existence.
I just sorry, I just placed a link in the chat about in the Aarhus, Gamleby Aarhus. Also.
Yes, Tom. Yes, Tom. Thank you for that. I was going to come to that. May I continue, please?
Okay.
Thanks,
yeah,
Tom. Yes,
Tom,
there is. I've seen it in the Aarhus Gamleby.
Yeah, Tom Steinbacken has very kindly provided for us all information, including a link to information about these old kiosks, including the ones that are in Aarhus and so on. So yes, thank you very much for doing that. That's really helpful. We can follow that link on. So Keith Burton was asking how many of the kiosks are still in place, and I think you've addressed that. So thank you for that one. Okay, Peter Coburn asks, in one of the pictures that you showed around the middle of your presentation, it looked as though 2 different kiosks were in one picture. Were these competitive?
You know, I think one of those kiosks might have been a public toilet. So
Yes.
It's not a kiosk. I'm not sure what it is. It's the one in Kultorv, I think you're thinking about, Peter. But I do have another one which has got a Parisian sort of style pissoir next door to it.
It does, yeah.
So I don't know. I'd have to check. But by and large, they were single. Actually, I think they were entirely singular. There was nothing in competition with them next door.
Yeah, I think
except in Kongens Nytorv, where there was one by the Statue Horse and one by Magasin du Nord, which is a big department store. So there were 2 in Kongens Nytorv, but at opposite corners.
Yeah, I think that the picture you showed where there was another kiosk-looking thing was plastered with adverts. So I suspect it was an advertising pillar rather than a separate kiosk. And the final question that I've seen at the moment is from Rex Dixon, who asks, did the Royal Danish Post also have greetings telegrams?
Yes. Yes, they did. The Royal Danish Post telegrams could not have started before 1929. I don't think, somebody Danish will correct me, but I don't think they started before 1929, but they certainly existed, yes, because my wife Birte had a lot of them from various events during her life, which her mother very irritatingly threw away.
Oh, okay. An allied question has come in from Lillian Swift, who asks, what did the Danish Post Office think of the kiosk setup?
Well, the kiosks were not the same sort of threat as the local posts had been in the 1870s and 80s and into the beginning, well, to the end of the 80s. They were a serious economic threat, whereas these were not. I mean, they used these, the stamps, I think, largely were used for postrestant fees, for delivery fees for forwarding, and for putting on envelopes with theatre tickets or whatever. And which is why they're so ephemeral, because, you know, you get your theatre tickets, you split the envelope, you put them in your top pocket, and the envelope goes in the bin. So, yeah, there was, that's about all I can add to it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, I don't think the Danish Post Office after 1896 was very badly troubled by the local posts, because they were all out of business apart from this one. And this was a relatively limited set of services within a very narrow geographical area.
Right, yeah. Grace Davis is asking, of the 8 kiosks that are still in place, as you've already outlined, are they still in commercial use, and is it just for magazine sales, etc.?
They're cafes by and large. Well, they're cafes, full stop. Yeah, coffee shops is what they do. So yes, they're in commercial use, but they're not They're not what they were. They probably still take advertising and so on.
Right. And Nick Martin particularly noticed, of course, the trams, as you mentioned in your talk. And he says that he noticed, a black box on the front. What were they? Post boxes?
No.
Right. That was a simple one. Good. Thank you. That looks to be the last question. I mean, Frank has contributed a point about greetings telegrams in the UK. They were issued in 1935. But yeah, that to me, Chris and Richard, looks to be the final question. So I'd like to hand back to Richard.
Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Chris, for answering all those questions so succinctly. It's now particularly that last one, it's now my very great pleasure to invite Lars Engelbrecht to present the vote of thanks. Lars, of course, is well known internationally as an international judge, as well as being a fellow of the Society and a signatory of the Roll of Distinguished Philatelists. It's over to you now, Lars, to express on behalf of everybody our thanks to Chris for that presentation today. Over to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Chris, for a fantastic presentation. As Richard mentioned, it is indeed a very unusual title and subject. And based on the title only, you could become a bit worried about today's presentation. Why are you talking about kiosks in Copenhagen at a philatelic meeting? But there is, of course, a very good link to philately, and you have shown that to perfection today. You are really an excellent storyteller, and we have seen that today, as we have with your other exhibits, your displays, your presentations on other philatelic subjects, most notably Schleswig, of course. And this is basically what you do in philately. You choose a niche in philately that nobody has really researched, and then you dig all the way into that subject, like we have seen today. And when you start your study of a new philatelic niche, you are really, really thorough, like you are in, I guess, all aspects of life. We have seen that too in your organizational talent here at the Royal, where we see the same, both thoroughness and determination, and thank you very much for that as well. On behalf of Danish philately, I'm very pleased that so much of your collecting is linked to Denmark. And we can, of course, thank one thing for that, and that thing is love. Or more specifically, the love between Birte and Chris. And I would like to thank Birte for falling in love with Chris, so that we today can sit 16 Danes here in Copenhagen and other cities in Denmark and listen to a presentation in London about Copenhagen Telephone Kiosks. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, the material that Chris is showing here today is really scarce. The variety of the material is superb, both from a traditional aspect as well as from a postal history aspect. And then you even include the postcards with the kiosks shown. And I agree completely that the telegraph forms are just beautiful. So you demonstrate here your ability to link philately with history, and here actually also art and architecture. There is, as you mentioned, a lot of things that we don't know about the kiosks and the usage of the stamps, but I'm very impressed with the research that you have done on today's subject. There's a lot of new information that you have managed to gather about the telephone kiosk stamps, the postmarks and their usage that has never been described before. And as always, you have shared this information in your exhibit, your display, in articles, and also here today in this presentation. So thank you very much, Chris, for telling us such a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing this with us, and thank you for your research behind it. And I would like to invite all attendants to show our appreciation in the usual way by putting our hands together like this. I know you cannot hear it, Chris, but I hope you can see it. So thank you very much.
Lars, thank you very much indeed for so capably summarizing the views of everybody here today on this magnificent presentation. I'm indebted to you. When I first considered who it might be the best person to present the vote of thanks. It was, as we say in the UK, a no-brainer. You are clearly streets ahead of anyone else who could express the views of this presentation that we have seen today, and thank you very much indeed. We now move on to, and Mark, I'm going to need you here for the question of the certificate.
You'll be pleased to know I have it about my person.
Yes.
And
Well, I hope you will show it, please.
I will indeed, and I must obviously acknowledge and thank Lillian for having shared it to me, sent it to me earlier. Thank you, Lillian. So,
thank you, Lillian, once again for the certificate. Chris, this is the memento. I think you've seen one of these and had one of these in the past. Another one to add to your collection, which expresses our gratitude today for this excellent presentation. You will, in due course, receive the paper copy in the course of the post. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say...
Can I just say thank you?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, please do, Chris.
I just thank you very much indeed, Richard, for giving me the opportunity to present something which is difficult to present. Lars, for expressing his appreciation on behalf of all of you. I hope it does reflect what everybody says. I think it's a fun subject, and I think that we all need fun subjects to share with each other. And just lastly, on Birte, last year was supposed to be our 50th wedding anniversary. And when we met, she didn't collect anything. And really, for much of the lockdown, she spent time sorting out things which she collects these days. And so, yes, it was wonderful to fall in love with Birte, but it's been hell on the budget. So, but thank you very much indeed. And thanks, B, for being so encouraging, for proofreading everything, and for translating things and trying to coach my poor Danish into something which resembles a few words which might be understood in Copenhagen. So thank you very much indeed, B. So
thank you, Chris. Moving on then, our next meeting, as has been indicated earlier, is on the Thursday, the 11th of March, and that will be Kim Stuckey presenting on British ice, which is mail sent from the British Antarctic expeditions during the 1950s. And to an extent, a great extent, it will feature the usage of the 1954 Falkland Islands dependencies, ships issue, and other related stamps issued during that period. And I'm sure we all look forward to that. I did see one question about when registration for this opens. Well, this has been the subject of some exchange of emails a few weeks ago. I will be sending a newsletter to all members on Friday of this week, and it will contain the words that registration is now open. So I anticipate that it will probably open from about 10 a.m. in the morning. When you can register will depend upon when you receive the email with the newsletter in it. Like the latest government announcement about lifting of restrictions relating to COVID-19, I'm afraid I can't be too precise as far as the time of day is concerned, but it will be on Friday. The recording, I think, will end in a few moments as far as this meeting is concerned. Is that right, Mark?
That's correct.
Yes. We will continue to chat and exchange views on a variety of subjects for as long as members present wish to. I did make a note of the number of participants at this meeting this afternoon, and I think the highest number I recorded was 153. Mark will no doubt correct me if that is not the figure that he has recorded.
It's about right. That's about right.
Is it? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to deal with an approximation as far as that's concerned at the moment. Finally, may I just thank everybody for attending this afternoon. I do hope, and I'm sure you all enjoyed it very much indeed. It is an exceptionally unusual subject, something that I found very educational and instructive and thoroughly enjoyable. And I hope that everybody else found it the same way. many thanks indeed for attending, and I look forward to seeing large number of people at the next meeting in a fortnight's time. I do hope to put a short paragraph in the next newsletter to say that we are seriously considering the impact of the latest government announcement, and for that purpose we are holding a meeting of the management committee on Monday when some decisions will be made. Obviously they'll all be subject to how things progress in the future, because the government has stipulated that certain dates are dependent upon data that will be reviewed a few days before that date. And of course, there may be changes because some of the data contains unexpected information. We hope things will go as they have been laid out. There are some areas which I think need a little more information to give us an accurate interpretation. And I hope to provide members with as much information as possible as to opening dates, with staff going back to the premises of 15 Abchurch Lane as soon as we're in a position to make firm decisions. I regret that I can't be more certain about that at the moment, but we live and continue to remain in rather uncertain times, but we hope that everything will be lifted in accordance with the dates that have been published. Thank you once again, everybody, and do continue to chat. Thank you.